Los Angeles, October 1990. A young woman named Tina Salvatore is driving alone when a mysterious car approaches her. The driver passes her and then halts at a stop sign, seemingly waiting for her to move. Feeling uneasy, Tina continues driving, but soon fears she is being followed. She pulls into a nearby gas station seeking assistance, but it appears deserted. The car then arrives at the same station, and the driver retrieves some items from the trunk. In a panic, Tina hides from the man until she spots a truck approaching. She steps into the road to flag down the truck driver for help. The next day, Deacon, now a deputy in Kern County, is handling a complaint from a shopkeeper about repeated damage to his neon sign. Once a renowned detective in Los Angeles, Deacon's career took a downturn after a difficult case years ago, leaving him emotionally scarred and living a solitary life. Later, he heads to Los Angeles to collect evidence for a recent murder case at the crime lab. After picking up the evidence, he visits his former boss, Captain Carl Ferris, at the LAPD. While there, Ferris suggests Deacon to assist Detective Jim Baxter, who is leading the investigation into a series of brutal killings. Deacon agrees, but Jim Baxter is initially skeptical about Deacon's help, viewing him as an outdated, washed-up detective. That night, Deacon and Jim team up with other officials, including Jim's partner, Detective Jamie Estrada, to investigate the apartment of the latest victim, Julie Brock. When they arrive, they find her stabbed and tied up, and there are signs that the murderer returned to the scene to move her body. Deacon runs into the coroner, Flo Dunnigan, who has known him for a long time and is aware of his past. While looking across the street from the building, Deacon spots a good vantage point to watch the apartment. He realizes that the way this killer operates is strikingly similar to a case that still troubles him, where he found two victims who were also nude, bound, and had bags over their heads. The scene then shifts to a woman named Rhonda Rathbun, who is wrapping up her evening run with a friend. After they said goodbye, a brown car that looked a lot like the one that had trailed Tina began to follow Rhonda. The next day, people realized she was missing and reported it. Jim calls Deacon to help when they catch a suspect named Stan Peters. Stan is a registered sex offender because he was caught peeing in public. When Jim shows him a picture of a girl named Julie, Stan starts crying. Then Jim mentions another victim named Mary Roberts, and suddenly, Stan stands up like he realizes that Deacon is watching him from behind the mirror. Deacon heads over to Flo to find out more about Julie. They discover that Julie had some roast beef in her stomach that was only partly digested, which is surprising since she usually followed a strict vegan diet. After their chat, Deacon and Flo decide to grab a meal together, and during their time, Flo mentions something about Deacon's well-known case. She even carries a keychain that has a fired bullet on it, which is pretty interesting. Later on, Deacon goes back to Julie's apartment to continue his investigation, and he talks to the landlady after she comes to check on him. Deacon ends up renting a room in a rundown hotel where there are prostitutes hanging out on the street outside. He still keeps track of the victims from his old case, and sometimes he imagines the victims coming to life, with Mary Roberts being the one he thinks about the most. Jim discovers from Captain Carl Ferris that Deacon became so fixated on his last case that it led to a serious breakdown. This breakdown caused Deacon to suffer a heart attack, go through a divorce, and even have to undergo triple bypass surgery. Later on, Jim talks to Rhonda's parents in hopes of locating her. They offer some useful information, mentioning that Rhonda often wore a red beret in her hair. The next day, Jim invites Deacon to his home for breakfast, where they share a meal and engage in a conversation that reveals more about their characters and the psychological weight of the ongoing investigation. After dinner, Deacon to stop by and see his ex-wife Marcia. Later on, he meets up with Jim at a bar where they discuss everything they've discovered about the murder investigation. Deacon also takes Jim to the scene of an earlier case, pointing out the exact spot where the bodies were discovered. This location is significant for Deacon. It represents the unresolved trauma and guilt he carries from that time. While at the site, Deacon explains the details of the earlier investigation and how it spiraled out of control for him. He recounts how he became obsessed with the case, which ultimately led to personal and professional ruin. The conversation reveals Deacon's regret and the emotional scars that the case left on him. After dropping Jim off at home, Deacon returns to the hotel and notices a car parking there, which is similar to the one that the killer had been seen driving. Curious, he approaches it and meets the owner, Albert Sparma, who insists the car isn't for sale. Deacon casually mentions he was just observing. Albert tosses some trash into a nearby bin and walks away. Intrigued, Deacon retrieves the trash bag and begins to sift through it, finding only empty milk can and some leftover pizza. Deacon spends the day trailing Albert and sees him doing various things, including picking up a prostitute. Eventually, Albert realizes that Deacon is behind him and drives by, playfully asking a question. How's the trunk space? Albert is taken to the police station for questioning. Coincidentally, Tina is also there to report the stalking incident that happened earlier. When she sees Albert, she seems to recognize him, but when Jim and Jamie show her pictures of recent suspects, she struggles to identify Albert as the man who stalked her. Jim starts talking to Albert, who reveals that he has a strange interest in serial killers and crimes like this, even getting a bit excited when looking at some crime scene photos. Suddenly, Deacon bursts into the room and roughly pushes Albert against the wall, interrupting the interrogation. Jim chats with Ferris once more and discovers that Albert had made a false confession to a murder 8 years ago, which means anything he says can't be trusted. Jim then goes to Deacon's apartment, where he sees many murdered victims on the walls, which Deacon could not solve. Feeling uneasy after looking at Deacon's files on the old case, Jim still asks Deacon for help in trying to catch Albert. They decide to search Albert's apartment while he's not there, but they have to make a quick escape when other police officers from that area arrive unexpectedly. The next night, Jim spots Albert alone and confronts him at gunpoint. Albert claims he can lead Jim to the spot where he supposedly buried Rhonda's body. The two then drive off in Albert's car, with Deacon tailing closely behind. They arrive at the desert, but Albert starts playing games with Jim, giving him different and confusing locations for the body. Eventually, Albert admits he never killed anyone and is just toying with Jim. As Jim continues to dig, Albert mocks him by bringing up his wife and daughters, calling him a terrible detective who fails to protect his family. This pushes Jim over the edge, and he strikes Albert with the shovel, killing him. In disbelief over his actions, he sits there until Deacon arrives to assist him. A flashback reveals the events from Deacon's case. After discovering 2 victims, Deacon heard a rustle in the bushes and fired his weapon, thinking the real killer was about to appear. Instead, it was Mary Roberts, who survived but was accidentally shot and killed. Ferris and Flo covered it up, claiming Mary had been stabbed. Deacon then instructs Jim to dig and fill several holes before they bury Albert in one of them, while Jim tries to reassure both himself and Deacon that Albert was indeed the right suspect. Deacon meticulously gathers all the evidence he can find in Albert's apartment and decides to set it ablaze. Meanwhile, Jim sits in the backyard watching his daughters play, though his wife and kids can sense something is troubling him. A police officer approaches and hands Jim an envelope from Deacon. Inside, he finds a note that reads, "No angels," along with a red beret. This leads Jim to believe Deacon has uncovered crucial evidence to take down Albert. In reality, Deacon purchased the beret to ease Jim's anxiety, all while he continues to destroy the evidence against Albert in hopes of finally closing the case for good. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.